Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm happy for you to get to know, if you don't know her already, Nicole McCance. Welcome, Nicole.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yes, and Nicole has got she has a podcast, and I'm going to get her to tell you more about that. But Nicole is located in Canada. And Nicole, as I start with everyone, tell folks a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So before I forget, my podcast is The Business Savvy Therapist. If you want to learn how to grow, jump in there. I only work with therapists across North America. So I was in solo practice for 15 years. I loved what I did. I saw couples, I did EMDR. But I don't know about you, Gordon, but I just became not quite burnt out, but like I was getting there. I was actually getting really frustrated with hitting the ceiling in my income. I had a good life, but I had to see, just to be really honest, like way too many clients, like way too many clients. And then one day, 2016, I become pregnant with twins. Twins. I'm going from a
Mhm.
family of two to a family of four, and I live in Toronto. And my first thought was, I can't work more. I want to work less. How am I going to do this? The only
Mhm.
way to get the freedom and flexibility I knew was to hire. So, guess what I did? Absolutely nothing. Because I didn't know the first step. There was really no business coach that I knew of back then to help me. So, I did nothing. Fast forward, Jackson and Lucas are now 2 years old. Mummy's still working until 7 p.m. I remember those moments coming home and just feeling like overwhelmed with guilt. So, it was just one fateful day that I decided, okay, I'm going to hire. Fast forward 3 years later, I have 55 therapists, multiple seven-figure group practice. But I'll tell you what I'm most proud of. It ran without me. This is what I teach people now as a business coach. Because I told my husband, I'm doing this to get the freedom. And then,
Mhm.
of course, once you build a revenue generating machine, what happens? Somebody wants to buy it. Now, I wouldn't have sold it to anyone because I did sell in the fourth year, literally 0 to 4 years, this happened. But it was a psychiatrist who said, I will, who already sold like who bought multiple clinics, including one for my friend. But he said, I will give them all pensions, I will give them all benefits. So I did walk away like with the ultimate freedom and then a year later retired.
Wow.
And
That's
now I
incredible.
help people do exactly that as a business coach.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to learning from you because I'm at that point where I'm facing retirement here in the next couple of years
That's
and,
exciting.
figuring out what to do with my practice and to take care of my employees and that sort of thing
Uh,
along the way. So, but yeah, so it with building a seven-figure practice, that's pretty impressive. What would you say got you there, and how did you manage that many people so quickly?
yeah. There's so much I can say, but I'm gonna start with like the three biggest steps that you can do. The first is systemize. Please systemize before you hire. Because what happens is I find a lot of therapists say, well, how hard is it? I'll just put a job posting up, just throw it on Indeed. I mean, I know about people, but what happens is they hire and they hire, but they're not a CEO, they're a CQA, Chief Question Answerer. They're
Mm,
overwhelmed. All the questions are coming to them. So I would, guys, what you want to do is write down, grab a Google Doc and all of your processes, get them out of your head. That's how I was able to automate because they weren't relying on me. That is step one. And that is the most important step and the most skip step.
mhm, mhm. I would totally agree, and that people hear this from me all the time on this podcast is the importance of learning to delegate and
Yeah.
outsource things,
Yes.
because I think as a solo practitioner, we tend to bootstrap a lot, um, and I know that that was a big mistake I made in my practice early on was doing too much bootstrapping, and it's
Yes.
like you said, like you alluded to with your family of just working all the time and just coming home exhausted because you were playing catch up all day long.
Exactly. But I will tell you, we didn't learn anything about business in graduate school. We know this.
Right.
What made the big difference for me, the real secret, is I got a business coach pretty early. The first
Mhm.
year was slow, I felt like I was walking in a dark forest. I didn't really know like which path to take. I feel like we feel that way, like which path actually works. But that was key. I got a business coach early. So she kind of walked me through the things to do. She wasn't a therapist, which is unfortunate. She wasn't regulated because there's a lot we can't do. But yes, so I got a business coach early. And I find in my business coaching program, because I'll tell you, once I retired, I said, what am I going to do with my life? Right? Like, what am
Mhm,
I still want to help people. And that's
mhm,
when I said, wait a minute, why don't I give therapists? I'll give them it all. Here's my systems. Here's my marketing plans that got me to rapid success. So, in my program, guess who grows the fastest? It's those who hire an admin early on. They
mhm.
double they double their results because they've literally offloaded the minutia. So don't be afraid. It will change everything if you find someone you trust to offload.
Right. Yeah. So what tips would you have for people in figuring out what systems and processes to implement and how to implement them and that sort of
Yes.
thing? I have some ideas about how I went about it, but I'm curious as to how you do it and how you teach it.
Yeah. You want a couple of manuals. One is your SOPs. This is a manual that every therapist will get. It's basically how we do things here. So I know your audience is very, very busy. I know I can hear your inside voice, guys. I know you're saying, I don't have the time. Like, who it's boring?
Mhm,
Who wants to do a manual? But what if, like, we're so lucky, Gordon, to live in a world that, like, Loom, have you heard of Loom? This
mhm,
video recording?
mhm.
Yes. So, what
Yes.
I would suggest doing is the next time you do a procedure, that you send a receipt, that you send a new client email, all the things you do, because guess what? You do the same thing again and again. Yeah.
Yes.
The
Mhm,
next time
mhm,
you do that, as long as you have it in privacy mode so that you can't see any PHI, do a Loom and talk the person, your future admin, through it as you're doing it. So they really know the way you want it. Click here, do this, then press this, write this. But even better, you know, our best friend, our new friend, ChatGPT, take that
mhm.
Loom, okay, no PHI in it, put it in ChatGPT and prompt it, can you please write out, like transcribe this Loom into 3 procedures, and then you move it over in your Google Drive so you don't actually have to type,
Right. Yeah, I
right? Like I
love
yes.
yeah. Yes, I love Chat GPT just with all the different things that
Oh
it's
my
capable
gosh.
of doing and just
Yeah.
really also and I learned this from my friend Jessica Tapana about teaching Chat GPT how to write the way you want it to write.
Oh my
And so
gosh. It's
that's a
amazing.
yeah,
It's actually
yeah.
scary. It's a little bit scary.
Yeah, it is. And I know I was listening to Nicole's, podcast before we recorded just to kinda get a feel for her style and how she does things, and I know one of her most recent episodes is a mutual friend of ours, Kim Tilson, who has the Traveling Therapist podcast, and Kim has really mastered a lot of the AI stuff.
Oh
And
my gosh.
it's gonna be a total it really is gonna be a total game changer in terms of, getting back to that topic of systems and processes. It's gonna
100%.
make it so much easier
Yes.
for us all.
We actually have Kim doing a series for my members on how to market with AI and all the things. So that is systemizing. But let's talk about where the magic really happens, and that's in the hiring piece. So now it's time to hire.
Mhm,
You've done your looms, like you've got all of your SOPs are written down, and now it's time to hire. I suggest, here's the thing. You were in solo practice, you're moving to a group. That's why you're listening to me, probably, right?
mhm,
People go to you for a reason. There's some sort of experience that you provide them. So, me, I'm high energy, that's clear. I'm quite direct in my
mhm,
therapy. And I made the mistake a long time ago hiring somebody that was the opposite of me, but it was impossible to move my clients over because they
mhm.
wanted a flavor called Nicole. Does that make sense? Kind of like your favorite
Yes, mhm,
restaurant. If you go to one in a different
mhm.
city, you expect the same experience. So here's my
Right.
advice: hire your mini me. They're not all your mini me's, of course not, but your first one, I think, has to be.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point, and I think, spending a lot of time on hiring, I think, is an important piece of really vetting your people on the front end because, again, there's so many mistakes I've learned from with
Oh
that
gosh.
of just of which part of your systems and processes and your SOPs, standard operating procedures, is being able to define how you want things done and setting that expectation on the front end.
Oh my
Because if
gosh.
you yeah.
It can cost you so much and be like, raise your hand if you've ever hired the wrong person. My hand's up.
Mhm.
I actually
Mhm.
have, because of this, a 6-step hiring model. It's my proprietary method. 6 steps. And I tell people that I work with,
Mhm.
my members, do not, this is a work marriage. Find your perfect person, take your time, and only hire the hell yes. Like after that interview, it should be like a holy cow. I'm impressed. I hope they want to work with me. Don't hire the
Mhm.
people that aren't the A players. So 6 steps, and not until you go through all of them should you actually hire the person. Like really, I underline your point. Yeah.
Right, right, yeah. So what other hiring tips do you have as far as knowing how to hire the right people?
Oh, so let's talk about step 1 of my 6-step model is actually screening. I don't know about you, Gordon, how many times have you gone on Zoom and within 5 seconds, research tells us we know if we like this person, we know if they'd honestly, if they're warm, and you're like, okay, it's worth an hour of my time. I've jumped on Zoom so many times, wasted an hour. So I suggest have your admin, once you hire them, I know you're going to now,
Mhm. Mhm.
screen them just on the phone. And here's what you want to ask. Do you live close to the office? You know, Toronto's a busy place. I thought it would be okay to hire people an hour away, and then it snowed. And they're like, "I can't do this anymore." So now I ask, and I
Mhm.
actually stop hiring people over 20 minutes away. Do you live close to the office? Are you okay with evenings and weekends? Ask these questions now because what happens, you're in the interview, you're absolutely in love with this person, and at the very end of your very precious hour, they say, "Oh, sorry, I can't work evenings and weekends." And you're like, "Oh, well, that's exactly what the position's for, so that was a waste." Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask the hard questions before you
Mhm.
share any of your energy and time on Zoom.
Right, right. And what about in writing a job description? How do you go about that?
Ooh, I love this question. 2 things. Research is now showing us we have an HR professional in American and a Canadian one in that does like monthly coaching with us. So she told me this, which is new. Guess
Mhm.
what people are doing? They aren't even reading the job description. They're scrolling to the very bottom. What are they looking for? Money.
The
They
sal
wanna
yeah.
know, what are you paying? What's the compensation? Okay. So just know that there's actually a new law in Canada that's just coming down the pipe that legally we have to put compensation, which is interesting. Like we can't not put compensation anymore. But so then they're going to scroll back up to the top and they're going to want to know more about you. And guess what? Please don't offer the boring job description, which talks
Mm.
about these are the requirements. They just see that 100 times over. Hook them. And what I mean by that is what's in it for them. Start with that. Hook them in and they'll read the whole thing. Otherwise, they'll bounce.
Right, right. So maybe another way to put that is you tell them what problem you're gonna be able to solve for them.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's,
Window with an office. We offer group supervision, peer
mhm.
supervision. There's free parking in the back. We're on the subway line. Like all of this, like, whoa, okay, this is why you want to work here.
Right, right. So, in thinking about scaling, particularly to 7 figures, do you wanna talk a little bit about maybe how you kinda structured things? I know, you were talking about being a cash pay practice or just being in network with just certain providers, that sort of thing.
Yes. So 70% of the people I work with are American. I'm your new Canadian friend.
Mhm,
I was cash pay, self pay, and I help you be that. But there's a lot of people that join that say, I want to stay in network. So we build that, but maybe get off some of those panels that are such a headache and paying nothing at least.
mhm,
Okay. So I love that you asked this because this is step 3. So it's kind of like systemize, hire, and then market and bring in the clients. I love digital marketing. Because here's the thing, I was busy. I had babies. I didn't have a whole lot of time to do all the things, and digital marketing works while you sleep. It's a high ROI. It's just a matter of knowing what to do because there's so much.
mhm.
There's so much I can talk about, but I'm just gonna talk about Google Ads. Here's why I like Google Ads. We're very lucky that we're one of the places that people go to Google to look for therapy. Think of your own life. Maybe
Mhm.
you're struggling in your marriage. Okay, fine. You'll go to your best friend to say who helped you in your marriage. Or maybe you can't sleep and maybe you'll go to your family doctor. But most of the time, the third place you'll go, like the top three, you'll type in, why can't my son, the teacher keeps saying he can't stop, he can't sit in his seat. This is my real life, by the way. And we're going to Google
Yeah.
and then we're finding that therapist. You can pay, of course, to be at the top, but a lot of people don't know how to do it successfully, so my program helps them with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So in the, maybe another component of all of this is how to price your sessions, particularly with a
Yeah.
cash pay, but also I would say with folks that are, and this is mainly, I guess, folks more in the United States, knowing how to price your sessions in a at, at a level that when insurance pays, the insurance is going to get their discount, but you can also have a buffer on the other end for cash pay clients.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and also what you pay. I really want this is a really important point. Thanks for bringing that up. A lot of group practices are overpaying their people. Listen up. If you have a
Yes.
fully licensed person, please, I repeat, please do not pay them over 60%. If so this is fully licensed, okay? If they're
Mhm.
pre-licensed, it's 50%. If they're fully licensed, it's 60%. But what happens is we love people, so we're like,
Mhm.
"Sure, it should be fine." But if I help people at least have a 20% profit margin.
Mhm.
If you give too much of the pie away, what is left for you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's again another great point because again, that's something I made a mistake in early on in my practice was I was
Yeah,
paying too much. And my friend Julie Harris, who's been on the podcast several times, and she's the author of Profit First for Therapists. And she used a case example of me of doing exactly what you said, Nicole, of paying your people too much without really knowing your numbers and really knowing
exactly.
what your margins are and that sort of thing. And what ended up happening to me was I ended up having to subsidize what I was paying people out of what I was producing. And that's
Yeah.
that's that's not sustainable
Well,
whatsoever.
exactly, and then it's like, "Why did I do this? This isn't how I planned it." You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Julie is a monthly expert in my program. I absolutely
Mhm.
love her. And what she talks about is like reverse engineering, coming up with your price,
Mhm.
but actually not just coming up with, oh, well, so and so down the road is doing this. Instead, how much do I want to keep? What's the profit margin based on, okay, and how much am I going to pay? And that's actually going to help you build out your session, which a lot of
Right.
people don't know. Yeah, really good point.
Right. Right.
Reverse engineer. Mhm.
Yes, yes, I love that, and that is a good way to kind of figure out how much you wanna work, how many clients you're gonna need to sustain
Exactly.
the lifestyle and salary you wanna pay yourself and all of that is
Which
to
is really fun.
do
That's my favorite
yeah,
part. Yeah, when
yeah,
members come in, we're like, "Okay, let's talk about, like, how big what do you want?" Like, that's yeah, so
yes,
exciting, that dream
yeah,
building. But if we can talk about profit for a second, because
yes,
when at least in Canada, I'm pretty actually, no, I know in the States too, that when you sell, guess what they look at? Profit. They don't look at your revenue. They want to know how much profit you're keeping monthly, which is why I help people know their profit and have it be profitable,
mhm,
especially if you want to sell, which really ties into how much am I paying, right? Because if I'm paying too much, I'm not going to
mhm.
be as profitable.
Yes, yes. Well, yeah, it's interesting too, and this might be getting a little technical, but knowing what to sell your practice for and how to sell it. How did you learn all of that?
Oh gosh, yeah. So my friend sold her practice to this buyer, we'll call him, okay? Psychiatrist
Mhm,
buyer. And I didn't just say, I'm going to sell it. This is my baby. Initially, I was like, no, I'm happy here. I'm during a growth fear. Like, we're in a growth period. But I watched her life changed. I watched her get paid because I was also worried, like, is that all going to happen?
mhm,
And so when I was finally like, you know what, I think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I think I'm just going to like go for it. What happens is they go through all your accounting, every single contract. They want to know how long they've been there, what they're being paid, when the raise is coming up. And then they usually say, this is how much we're going to give you. And it's based on, now this is going to be technical, but don't worry, it's only one technical word. It's called the EBITDA, which is basically an accounting term. It's just profit. So it's not like I walk up to them and say, I want this much, seven figures. They go into my books, right? It makes sense. Like it's almost like having your house appraised and then the appraiser
Yes.
says this, yes. So my business was quote appraised. And then that's when they said, okay, it's worth this much based on the profit that's coming in monthly.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
actually,
Did they
technically, it's the profit annually.
Right, right. Did were when you transitioned out of owning the practice, did you continue to work for the company for a little
Really
while?
good
Because
question.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing, my friends. You probably in your career will get a phone call one fateful day. It'll probably be an equity company, and they will say, well, this is what they won't say. I know nothing about therapy and I'll probably blow up your business. But what they will say is, you know what? I'll give you money, but a lot of the time they want you to actually that's not freedom to me. This is what happens.
Mhm.
You still do the same work, but I'm going to invest, but I'm actually going to keep some of the money. That didn't make any sense to me, right? So
Mhm.
I really was clear that if I sell, you get it. I did what's called, you call it a stock sale. We call it a share sale here, where they bought everything. I had a 27,000 square foot, 24 office room. And so they bought the chairs, the desks. Like I literally just walked out the
Mhm.
door, but I didn't want to leave my people. So for 1 year, I helped them with marketing, but
Mhm.
I did one meeting a month. I just didn't want, yeah, with my own personality, I didn't want to have a boss because sometimes they
Mhm.
become your boss and it's all to me, that's not a sale.
Right, right. Yeah,
A sale is, yeah, I get the freedom, you pay me, and that's it.
sure, sure. Yeah. Wow, this is fascinating stuff, Nicole, and I know we could probably talk for hours
Yes.
about this, but I want to be respectful of your time. Tell folks how they can get in touch with you, number one, but also just what are some other kind of closing thoughts you might have for us?
I get the sense that there's a few people in solo practice that really want this. You want this, but you're terrified, right? I was too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just the uncertainty. So I do have a weekly free masterclass called How to Build a Seven-Figure Group Practice that I would just show up. Let's hang out. You'll learn from me because it's just knowing more. And then knowing
Mm-hmm.
more, educating yourself helps with the fear because the fear is normal. But I can guide you. And then I also have my podcast, which is the Business Savvy
Mm-hmm.
Therapist. So if you love podcasts, jump on over.
And so, Nicole, I'm sure I will have you back here before
That'd be
too long.
amazing.